All right, guys, it is that time of the year where brands in Japan are dropping their brand new 2023 product. And one of our favorite reels, Jeff, the Daiwa Z 2020, is now in the future. We've got a brand new reel from Daiwa Japan dropping. No idea if this is ever going to make it to the US or not, but we went to the Osaka show to put our hands on it and to geek out ourselves. We are going to take you along if you want to see the single most expensive, most advanced reel ever for freshwater fishing. Come along and check out the brand new 2023 IMZ Limit Breaker from Daiwa Japan. Let's go.
That's the new reel.
All right, guys, so this is the brand new IMZ Limit Breaker. This is one that the tech is unbelievable. We're gonna have to see what we can do to bring them stateside. I'm super excited for this because, you know, Jeff, you and I have both used the Z 2020 for a long time. This is one that's pretty exciting because there is a computer inside. It Bluetooths to an app. There's literally different digital settings here that you can set for different casting. And when you throw, it speaks to your smartphone. It helps analyze how much wrist snap you have, how much distance. It's analyzing everybody's casting individually. And then it's setting the DC to be personalized for you. So this is Jeff's DC or Ben's DC. Pretty cool, right? So, and I keep saying DC because that's what we're used to. It's not exactly the same. It's a whole new system of computerized Bluetooth, but I'm super stoked for this. Now, pricing, crazy, right? It's gonna end up landing somewhere around $1,500 a reel, but you're almost buying a computer. In essence, you're buying the tech to help you not suck, right? I'd spend $1,500 to not suck. So I think you guys are gonna be really excited to get your hands on it, but more than anything, it's exciting to see where tech is going. What does this mean for 10 years down the road? I don't know, but I'm gonna show you some of the tech that's involved, and you can see some of the internals down here. So all the way from, you know, side plate to the computerized system. You've got, you know, and again, it's Bluetoothing to your phone. So it's got, you know, the spools that are in there that's analyzing your stroke. You've got the big gearing. Of course, it's going to be super important for swim bait guys. You've got the stacked carbon disc drag. So a really beefy drag, a beefy frame. And here you can see the Z that, you know, we're familiar with, Jeff, and the new IMZ Limit Breaker. Similar size, but it's got all the new hyperdrive system in it. It's got the new drag in it. So this is gonna be really something to see how this actually works. I can't wait to fish it, right? So I'm excited that we started here. This is the first new launch from Daiwa. Now let's go find the stees, shall we? All right, guys, so there was a kind of a sneak peek first look at some of the new exciting drops coming from Daiwa Japan. Now, Jeff, it was really fun to put our hands on some of these things, right? I mean, I've been throwing the Steez A basically since Steez A has been a thing. It's been my workhorse go-to reel. So super exciting that there's a new Steez A, new and improved, right? We've both loved the Z. So in this IMZ with all the new tech is just kind of crazy. When we do a first look video, basically it's our chance to just kind of geek out, show you guys some of the new product, spec it out, and just kind of share our thoughts. Now, with any reel, and really I guess the same with rods and lures and everything, specs and cosmetics and all this kind of stuff are important to kind of give you a baseline, let you know what's coming down the pipe. But keep in mind that until we actually get a chance to use these reels and put them on the water, and same with you guys, we're not going to know if any of these like cool new features are actually functional or if they're just kind of nonsense, right? So sometimes things really surprise us. Something is touted as, you know, the greatest thing ever, and it really doesn't do anything. Sometimes things kind of slide under the radar that we don't think are really that cool, but then when we put line on it and actually start using it, it shocks us and surprises us, right? So keep that in mind. We will do a follow-up video to this when we actually get time to put some of these things through the ringer. But I want to spec some of these reels out and give you guys some insight to Jeff and I's thoughts now that we've had these, now that we've had a chance to talk to a lot of our friends in Japan that have been on the design and prototype stage of some of these reels, give you guys some feedback on what we think might happen going forward. So let's start with that IMZ. That's the reel that has probably been blowing up more than any other reel in my feed. Have you been getting a lot of questions about the IMZ, Jeff?
Not yet, no.
Okay, so the biggest thing is you guys know Shimano has basically owned the DC world, right? That digital chip world. Everybody knew that at some point Daiwa would be coming with something to try to compete with that tech, right? Now, the IMZ is basically the newer version of their Z2020. So Z2020 is a reel that's been out for probably about a decade now, I would say. The original one is kind of that all black look. Depps did a collab with them where they basically took it and kind of made it this cool kind of Depps looking color. And Jeff has had one of these. You've had one in your arsenal for how long?
Since you had them in.
Okay, so several years,
yeah.
Right? I have one in my arsenal. And there's things that I love about this reel and things that I don't love about this reel. And Jeff's shaking his head yes, he feels the same. So the new IMZ is basically the new upgraded version of the Z2020. Now, if you guys own one of these, you probably have the same love-hate relationship that we have with this. Jeff, let me pick your brain. So first off, I would say this reel is a pretty heavy reel. Would you agree?
I'd say so, yeah. It's got some weight to it. And like you already said, it's a 10-year-old reel.
Yep.
They haven't changed much from it in 10 years. So it's 10 years ago, that was probably considered light.
Right.
10 years now, it's like it's heavier than a brick.
Right.
But
it weighs a lot.
It was nice because it's still like compact, but a lot of guys were using it as like a 300 size reel, and it's much smaller than what 300 size reels were.
Yeah.
Back then too. So it was kind of like this cool low profile reel at the higher end, because back then, you'd pick up Alexa 300 or Carter 300, and then you had this thing, and it was like the highest grade, high-end swim bait reel that was made for swim bait guys. So
right.
It was a really good reel, and it still is, but like you said, there's unfortunate flaws with it.
Yeah, so one of the big flaws is the clutch.
Pinion gear.
Pinion gear.
That will go bad on you.
So there's some gearing issues in here that if you put too much weight on this or you throw too many times, things are going to break, right? So this was unfortunately one of those reels that if you've had it for as long as what Jeff and I have had, these Z2020s, you've replaced parts in it, right?
And
that's just the way it is.
Some of those parts are very hard to get because it's a decade old.
Harder and harder too, because this is a reel that's never been supported by Daiwa USA. This was always a Daiwa Japan reel. Now, really quick on that topic. Some of these reels that we're showing you will end up being core USA offered models. And some of these reels that we're showing you will never be core USA models. They're only going to be offered in Japan. Now, the difference between those two is when it is a USA supported reel, there's full warranty and full part support on that reel. So you're going to get a full 1-year warranty. If you buy it and something goes wrong, Daiwa is going to replace it or fix it for you for no charge. As long as that reel is in the life of Daiwa, there will be part support as well. So if you have a pinion gear break, they're going to have parts for it, right? So it's just easy to repair, easy to maintain, and it's just kind of, it's a nice peace of mind, right? Now, when you do a Japan-only reel, whether it's Daiwa or Shimano, the warranty goes out the window. There's no warranty, there's no support, right? So you're kind of rolling the dice a little bit. Now, what we do here in store is if we bring over some Japan-only items, we self-warranty them, right? So just a peace of mind for you. So if you would have bought a Z2020 from us or, the Depps collab, we would have warrantied it for you. If you buy it and there's a problem, we take care of it, right? Now, This is important because when we're talking about the Z or the IMZ coming up, this is going to be kind of a different beast, right? So what was cool about the Z, and it's important that we keep talking about this because it really kind of sets the stage for what the IMZ actually is getting back to what Jeff said. This is one of those reels that I think was best on like your mid-duty swim bait stuff, right? So if you're throwing a 4 to 6 ounce bait, it was a reel that could really handle that without blowing it up. So your slide swimmers, your bigger GAN crafts, you know, your DRT type stuff, even something like a Huddleston, like an 8-inch, something like that, you could put that kind of weight on this reel and it was pretty functional, right? Now, what the IMZ does is it obviously puts all that tech, but it shrinks down the size a little bit. But even when I spec this out, I can't even explain how much lighter it feels in hand. Okay, so just to give you guys an idea, the Z2020 was offered in a 7:2 to 1 and a 6:4 to 1. Okay, so the 2 gear ratios. The new IMZ 8:4 to 1. So it's going to be offered in 1 gear ratio and it's a high speed, specifically aimed at glide bait guys. Glide bait guys, we know after spending some time there that a lot of the swim bait guys are transitioning to sea bass as well. Bass fishing just really kind of sucks in Japan. So if you want to get bites and you want to actually, you know, get fish hooked up, sea bass is kind of the alternative to the largemouth, and a lot of the same glide baits, big topwaters, that kind of stuff applies both in fresh and salt. So they built the reel to be able to go both fresh and salt, but it's just going to have that higher gear ratio, which I personally like. Thoughts on the higher gear ratio?
I like 8s.
Yeah.
I mean, that depth collab is an 8.
Yep. So they sped it up a little bit, right? So I like the idea of the higher gear ratio. Now, weight-wise, this was 9.5 ounces. Okay. The new IMZ 8.8 ounces. So it only specs out like not even a full ounce less. But I'm telling you, when you put it in your hand,
Felt super light.
the first thing I thought was, "Holy shit, it's light." Right? And when I put this in my hand, the first thing I think is, it feels like a brick, right? So I don't know how accurate that spec is. I'm assuming it's accurate, right? Because that's what Daiwa is giving us. But initial impressions, it feels a lot lighter than what the stats are telling me. It really felt light. As far as bearings, this was 12 plus 1, right? The new one is 12 plus 1, so you're getting the same amount of bearings. This was a 13-pound drag. The new one's a 15.5-pound drag. So they've beefed up the drag a little bit. I don't know, is that an important feature for you in a swim bait reel? I mean, are you really worried too much about the drag being 13 or 15 pounds? Does it do anything for you?
I don't think it, no, not for largemouth.
Sea bass, maybe?
Sea bass, if they like pull, but I don't think they pull like that. I mean, if guys are chasing like yellowtail and GTs with it,
yeah,
it makes sense. But
yeah,
for largemouth, they're not that strong.
Especially for this style of largemouth fishing.
Right, we're throwing 25-pound line. We're using an extra heavy rod.
Usually more in open water, right? To where it's not like you've just punched something and you got to pull him away from some cover.
Like 30 pounds of grass, like,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you know, it's cool. Obviously, I want the most I can get.
Right.
So I'm happy with the extra drag, but it doesn't really, it's not a make or break for me. Handle size, this is a 90 millimeter handle on this one. The new one's a 95. Okay, so you get a little bit longer handle. They also went with those foam grips, right? The EVA foam, similar to like the JDM Zillion HD, which I personally like. Some guys don't like them, but you know, most guys like you put your own grips on that shit anyways, right? So does that even, I mean, did you care?
I like seeing these reel companies start thinking about, you know, we have this bigger size reel for swim bait guys. For the most part, they want a bigger handle on this, so why don't we just put it on their cells so they don't have to feel like, wow, this is a super tiny handle, I have to go get another one. So
yeah,
which is nice.
And there's some of that goes on, especially when we start talking about some of the Shimano stuff.
Yep.
You're going to hear more about that. But I liked the handle. I thought it felt great. It felt big. It felt beefy. So there's no need to even put an aftermarket on there. But of course, if you're into the aftermarket stuff, then, you know, you can geek out on that, right? Okay. As far as line capacity goes, this was 135 yards of 12 pound. Okay, so it took, I would say, probably like 90 yards of 20 pound, something like that.
Yeah.
The new one is 125 yards of 16 pound.
Wow.
So it's a slightly bigger spool, but here's the biggest difference. This retailed for somewhere around $600-700 at the time. You know, because this has been out so long, we had these last, we were even selling them for like 300, 400, something like that,
cheap.
right? So, you know, it's a reel that you've been able to find anywhere from like that $400 to $600 range. Now, the new IMZ is putting that computerized goodness in there, right? So they're calling it an intelligent computer, right? So basically what you're getting is, with a Shimano DC, you basically have a computer chip in there that kind of activates when you go to cast the reel. It kind of engages that chip and then it shuts off. In the IMZ, it's an actual computer, and I don't know exactly how it works. There's still a lot of information that's still kind of funneling down. A lot of it we're going to have to use, but it has a built-in lithium battery. Okay, you have to charge it. It charges via USB-C, right? So it's an actual like mini tiny computer inside of that reel that you have. There's multiple brake settings. There's 4 different settings that you can do, from long cast to max brake. But the biggest thing is that it Bluetooths to an app, right? And that app is designed to store data for you. So you're going to constantly have this database. So if you wanted to look back across your last 3 months of fishing and see, you know, which settings worked best for you, that you got max distance out of, least amount of backlashes, so on and so forth, you can really dial in your reel to be very personal and functional for your style of casting, right? So if you use more wrist snap, or you're better long casting or whatever, you can use all your personal data. Every cast it's recording and tracking and keeping, and it's giving you feedback, right? So you can really geek out on these things. And it's pretty interesting how it's all going to work. And the fact that it can Bluetooth to an app tells us that there's probably a lot more insight and plans for the future, right? So, you know, whether that be something that could someday maybe even sync to your graph, right? To where, you know, like your live scope's telling you, hey, there's a fish 60 feet out there and 40 feet down, and you can translate it to cast exactly 60 feet and 20 feet down. Who knows, right? I mean, I'm just looking into the future and wondering, where the hell is this going, right? Sky's the limit, I think, at this point. Now, a couple things to caution you about. Because it is a computer and it has a battery, there is a battery life to it. It's 90 minutes. Okay, it's 90 minutes to a full charge of battery, which is roughly about 700 casts. Okay, so it turns on and off during the casting portion of it. So we don't know yet, because we haven't been able to use it, what happens after the computer shuts down. We're thinking that it just shuts down the entire braking system. And if that's the case, on your 701st cast, I don't think there's any braking. I don't think there's any computer helping you. We could be wrong, so this is just thoughts. Again, we're waiting to try to get some firm answers on this, but a lot of stuff is still super gray and unknown on this reel, right? The other caution is, because it's a computer, it is going to run the risk of overheating. Okay, so you guys know, if you ever film, even, you know, if it's a big camera like what Jeff uses, even if it's a GoPro, when you film in the heat, things overheat, right? Like, I know when I put my GoPro on my chesty and it's like May and it's 110 degrees out and I'm walking around, dude, that bitch burns up. So, you know, it just overheats, it stops working. The same thing is going to happen with the IMZ. It's rated up to 40 degrees Celsius, which is roughly just over 100 degrees, 103, 104 degrees, something like that. So if you live in a place like what we do, where it's routinely 100 to 120 half of the year outside, and that's just heat. That's not sun beating down on you. Remember, it could be 80 degrees, and if you have the reel laying on the deck and the sun's beating down, that could overheat it as well. So there's some questions here on what happens when it overheats, how long does it shut down. There's still a lot of unknown, right? Now, the other thing to keep in mind is right now, the IMZ is scheduled as a Japan-only reel. So there will be 0 support in the USA, right? Now, of course, we're gonna bring some over because I need to fish them, right? And there's a lot of people that we don't care, right? Pricing, they're looking at 125,000 yen, which is gonna be, by the time it lands and all the duties and shipping and everything are done, you're gonna be looking at a reel that's priced somewhere 1,200, 1,500 bucks, something like that for a reel, okay? Super expensive. By far the most expensive freshwater reel that I've ever seen, right? But you're getting all this tech, all this stuff. Now, the app is only in Japanese. So if you guys don't speak Japanese, the app's not gonna do you any good, right? So this would be a good time to start freshening up on your Japanese. We are working with Daiwa USA to try to figure out a way to bring this over, get the app into English, and find a lane for this reel to be functional here in the US, but it's still new. It's new tech. You know there's gonna be quirks. You know there's gonna be things that are gonna, you know, go wrong with it. And I don't think Daiwa USA really wants to mess with that yet, right? So, super exciting. It's a beautiful reel. It feels amazing. I'm super stoked to use it. If you guys follow any of the Daiwa Japan sites and you watch them cast with it, it controls the slowing down and speeding up unlike anything else I've ever seen, right? So, super exciting that it's coming. That's the IMZ Crazy Bougie reel. Don't know if it's even gonna be functional or not, but for me, I'm stoked. Are you gonna get one?
Absolutely.
Okay, and what's the most exciting thing for you about it?
You know how much I like the Z.
Yeah.
So I like super high-end, low-profile reels. Like the Antares DC Monster Drive is cool, but it's more like a 200, 250 size reel. That Z is gonna be like that true 300 size reel. Something that I've been asking for a while is I want a super high-end, you know, 300 size swim bait reel for my glides and stuff like that. So if this delivers, it's gonna be sick.
It could be the one.
But the price is insane.
The price is nuts.
I don't know Japanese that well to read an entire app, so I'm gonna press the wrong button on the app and
right.
the reel's gonna blow up.
These are all things that we don't know yet, right? So we have to get our hands on them. I think the next video we do in the IMZ is gonna be the most fun one.
Yeah.
The hands-on review. Where we just screw the whole thing up.
100%.
Right.
Yeah.
So we watch Ben and Jeff destroy $1,500 reels, right?
3 casts.
Right. We also don't have any clue on timing or supply chain. Nobody really has a firm answer. It's scheduled for late spring, like April, May, but they always say that at shows. So every time a trade show comes out, they say, oh, this will be out in the next 60 days. And then next thing you know, it's a year later and we still haven't seen it, right? So not sure totally. What I do know is that the guys that have been using it think it's just the coolest reel ever, of course, right? Because of the tech. For a swim bait guy like you where you mainly fish in the winter and colder months, the temperature thing's probably not a big deal for you, right? But for a guy that maybe wants to use it for summer glide baiting or deep cranking or something like that, I don't think summer is gonna be the deal with this. But there's one way to find out. So stay tuned. We'll get our hands on those and we'll follow up with you guys. All right, guys, so that is a official wrap on the first look of the new IMZ. Give me your thoughts. Give me your feedback. Drop down below. What do you think in a super expensive reel, but if a reel from the future, Jeff? It's going to elevate our game, or will it? Time will tell. Jeff and I will get these in our hands. We will use them and we will do another one of these, but an actual hands-on review once they release those. But love to hear your feedback, guys. Thank you for joining. Daiwa, great job at bringing us into the future. Super stoked to see where things go. Guys, appreciate your time as always. We will see you on the next one. Peace out.